Trump is demanding that NATO allies step in immediately to secure the Strait of Hormuz, or face what he calls a very bad future for the alliance itself as the conflict with Iran enters its third week and the waterway stays blocked. He has publicly pressed countries that rely on Middle East oil to send warships and support the coalition because American forces alone cannot keep the critical route open against ongoing Iranian threats. Can you believe the stakes he is laying out on those calls and in his public statements right now? Yet, the rejection from key allies has come fast and firm, leaving the United States largely standing alone in its push to reopen the passage. Germany has stated outright that this is not a NATO matter and more clarity is needed before any involvement, while other partners from Europe to Asia have responded with hesitation or outright refusal to commit vessels, citing their own domestic priorities and existing energy arrangements. What does that kind of diplomatic pushback really signal about the strength of long-standing partnerships when the pressure hits hardest? Prediction markets indicate a 78% probability that the strait remains closed or severely restricted in the coming phase of this conflict. And those figures reflect the collective judgment of traders weighing the latest intelligence reports and on-the-ground realities without promising any swift end. The oil price implications are unfolding rapidly because that 21-mile choke point normally carries about one-fifth of the planet's daily supplies, and its continued closure is already driving benchmarks higher, with analysts warning of further significant jumps that could affect fuel costs and broader economic stability worldwide. How long before those rising expenses start showing up in your grocery bill and your commute? Long-term, the disruption threatens higher prices across consumer goods, transportation, and energy-dependent industries as global supply chains scramble to adjust to the constrained flows through the Persian Gulf and reroute around the blockage at massive extra cost and time. The insurance crisis for tankers has escalated sharply, with war risk premiums surging dramatically as underwriters reassess the dangers, and many shipping companies decide to avoid the route entirely even after buying additional coverage. Major marine insurers have already voided earlier policies and introduced steep new rates that make voyages through the area far too expensive, leaving vessels idled in port or forced to take the long detour around Africa. Is it any wonder that commerce through one of the world's busiest oil arteries is grinding to a halt under these conditions? Large investors in financial centers such as Dubai are repositioning their holdings amid the uncertainty. As Gulf markets register declines and sentiment turns away from exposure tied directly to the disrupted energy flows because those players track these patterns closely and move on the data available to them in real time. Observers note a brief period before broader retail awareness fully catches up to the institutional shifts already taking place, which could lead to wider volatility once the full scale of the situation becomes clear to more participants in the markets. This picture comes straight from publicly reported developments, including statements from the White House, allied governments, shipping updates, and market analysis that major outlets have covered hour by hour. The strait faces ongoing risks, with Iranian forces maintaining control and the Allied response remaining limited despite repeated appeals. The economic signals are strengthening by the day, as each additional day of closure adds pressure across global energy supplies and forces everyone from governments to everyday consumers to confront the ripple effects. Trump has demanded help from about 7 key nations, yet so far no firm commitments have emerged, and that isolation is exposing real fractures in the alliance at the worst possible moment. European leaders have pushed back firmly, refusing to dispatch a single frigate or submarine into the high-risk zone. And their caution highlights how quickly politics can override shared strategic interests when the conflict intensifies. What happens when the very partners the United States counts on for support simply step aside and leave the burden untouched? Oil prices continue to climb as the blockade holds firm and the 21-mile choke point becomes the focal point of a crisis that no one outside the region can ignore any longer. Insurance costs for any tanker brave enough to attempt the passage have quadrupled in some cases, making the economics of shipping through the Gulf prohibitive and forcing companies to absorb huge losses or abandon the trade altogether. Dubai-based investors and other Gulf players are already adjusting portfolios to limit exposure because the data they see confirms the disruption is not ending soon and the smart money is acting before the broader public even registers the shift. You have only a short window before that retail awareness spreads wider, and the resulting volatility could reshape markets in ways that catch many off guard. This is the situation emerging directly from verifiable sources rather than speculation, and it shows exactly how a regional conflict can quickly threaten global stability in ways that touch every economy. The allies may have rejected the call for now, but the strait remains closed, the threats continue, and the economic consequences are building with every passing hour. So tell me, are you paying close attention to these shifts and preparing yourself for the potential impacts when the next major update drops, because the situation continues to evolve rapidly, and staying aware of the full stakes will matter for everyone watching the headlines unfold in real time.